I'm eating podcasts for dinner.
And we are live here on the Flat 5 podcast. First off, for the listeners, I want to say thank you for your patience. I'll speak to this camera directly here. It's been some time since the last episode. It is the working life of a musician. Half of the listeners know how it is. The other half are the ones coming out to the shows. So I appreciate you guys with your support on all the projects and for tuning into this episode. We have two members of the band Plastic Waste here, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm John.
I'm Ethan.
Wonderful. So Ethan, you are the bassist of the band.
Yes.
And John, what do you play?
Drums.
Drums. All right. So we got a rhythm section here today. Pretty nice.
Right.
So to give a quick backstory, myself and Leo, aka Truffle Images, took a trip to New York. I want to say like mid-June. It was mid-June or like late May, early June.
Yeah,
in and around there,
something like that.
And we happened to stumble across a venue called the Sultan Room. And we're just catching the shows there. And I saw Ethan perform with an artist named Carolyn. I believe her last name is pronounced Kun.
Kuhn.
Caroline Kuhn. Caroline Kuhn.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad I'm not fully butchering that last name. But it was a fantastic show. It was a great band. You guys were playing as a three-piece. And, you know, it was like such a blast to watch you guys play and to listen to it. And the crowd engagement as well was pretty fantastic. And so... you know, met you, Ethan, afterwards, and we got to chatting, and he told me about, you know, Plastic Waste and everything, and you guys had a show at the Emmett Ray last night, which, you know, for the listeners, that'll be July 6th. So how was that show last night?
It was fun. I mean, that was the day after we played Montreal Jazz Fest, which was on Wednesday,
right.
July 5th. That was with a sextet. So our band... Well, on the records, it's 2 saxes, guitar, bass, and drums. Mm. At the Jazz Fest, we added another guitar, so we had a sextet. But last night, it was just quartet.
Nice.
4 of us could make it here to Toronto, and we've done the quartet thing before, and it's been great, super open.
Absolutely.
Electric bass. Usually I play acoustic bass, but I was on electric last night.
Nice.
So it's really a different thing. So it took some time to adjust, I'd say, musically.
And so how was the Montreal Jazz Fest?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Did you guys like catch anybody's set? Did you guys watch anyone else perform?
I've been watching people perform across the week.
Nice.
We went to just afterwards. Thundercat was playing on the main stage with tens of thousands of people there.
Yeah, I saw videos on that. That one looked pretty fantastic. Looked pretty gnarly.
Oh, they just went for it right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then Genevieve Artadi was playing for free inside. There's so many great free shows. It's amazing. You just can't believe that you could go from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning, not pay any money, and see some of the best writers and players in jazz and like pop.
So is the whole festival free? Like, I've never been. Mm-mm. Is the whole festival free, or do you know how it works?
No, there's paid events
right.
inside. There's a whole roster of venues that they use every year.
Mm-hmm.
Then those are ticketed venues, but. And almost always, at least, I mean, I've lived in Montreal for like 8 years or so, but
right.
when I first moved there, anything that was inside was a ticket. But now they've got that, what used to be called L'Astral is called Studio TD, and they have free shows inside there too.
Mm.
So they've opened that up. So every outdoor stage plus Studio TD and maybe a few others. Yeah, there's an after hours set every night too. I saw this saxophonist. Casey Benjamin, you know this guy?
That was fire.
I don't know.
Plays with Robert Glasper Experiment. If you ever listen to that band,
definitely
he's the one singing, playing, and playing sax.
Wow.
Well.
Yeah, you know that
must have been a great set then.
You know that track "Cherish the Day"?
Yes.
Yeah, he takes that great saxophone solo.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable.
That must
it was euphoric.
Insane.
His soloing, it was amazing.
So John, you've lived in Montreal for 8 years now, but where did you live prior?
I grew up in Calgary.
Oh, you grew up in Calgary. Okay. So, Ethan, you're American-born.
Yep. Grew up in New York, moved to Montreal, same time as John. Mm-hmm. Lived there for 6 years and left a few years ago.
And you guys met in school together, right?
Yeah.
What school did you attend?
McGill. We went to McGill.
Very nice. Yeah.
A lot of Americans going there now.
I've heard.
I was one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked it. I mean, you know, it's hard to say in retrospect. I feel like my attitude now towards it is maybe better than when I was in school.
Right.
You know, probably because I'm more grateful for all the results and
Yes.
the people I met. You know,
Absolutely.
John and the rest of this band included.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was cool. I mean, Montreal's music scene is amazing. Like,
It's fantastic.
super unique, and
Yeah.
really, that's the thing I'm most grateful for. I mean, I learned
Absolutely.
a lot
Yeah.
in college,
And so
whatever.
how did you find, Ethan, the transition? Like, did you stay in Montreal the entire time and then went back to New York like 6 years later? Did you travel back and forth and play some gigs there and play some gigs in Montreal?
Well, during the time I lived in Montreal, that was my base.
Right.
Like, I moved there when I was like 18, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the
yeah.
amount of music making I was doing in New York was not so much, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was really like Montreal's my place. I wasn't playing so much in New York really until I moved back there 2 years ago.
Right. So
Yeah.
how did you find that transition from Montreal to New York?
Well, intense for sure. Like, I mean, I know New York very well, but I knew it as a kid. You
Yes.
know? And so I came back there, and having to like pay my rent. We were just talking about cost of living
Oh,
here
buddy.
before we started rolling,
Yeah.
and in New York, it's pretty much equal. You know,
Absolutely.
so it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's that. There's it's the overwhelming number of things to do,
Right.
like, which can be great, but it can also be difficult, you
Yeah.
know, to find your path and find your people. So that's been a process, you know, like anyone has to. And as a musician, as an artist, that's especially, it compounds on itself, because you not only have to find your friends and all that, but you also have to find your scene and your people you want to work with. And
Right.
it's like, oh, it's the freelance life. How am I going to piece it together? And everybody's doing it in a different way. It's pretty insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, John, when you moved to Montreal from Calgary, how did you find the transition? I mean, you were staying in Canada. Did you find it was a little bit, you know, of an easier like transition?
Than what Ethan's talking about?
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, my family is from Montreal. My dad moved there, moved to Calgary with his family in 1965.
Right.
So, I mean, not to be like intangible or mysterious about it, but it kind of felt like a homecoming in a certain way.
For sure.
My
yeah.
grandparents grew up and lived in Verdun, and they went to McGill and would talk to me about Montreal quite a bit.
Right. Right.
So I was familiar, but it's a much bigger, denser city than Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have school as a landing pad, you have a built-in community.
Right.
So, you know, when Ethan and I met in the cafeteria at the residence, right?
Nice.
And
Yeah, yeah.
so your experience going to New York, like you can have those experiences, I'm sure, where you meet people in a very organic way, but you have to be putting yourself out there a lot
Yeah.
to find people. I would imagine so. I can't really speak to your experience, but the school really facilitates that.
Absolutely.
Meeting people that are like-minded, and then you have a framework in which to you meet someone and be like, well, why don't we do a group together?
Right.
For school, and it's low pressure, and then if it works out, then you can start thinking maybe then it naturally might lead to a project like
becomes a
the
bit more
one we've
broad.
been doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we were in school, really with everybody who's in this band now, we worked together in some capacity.
Right.
But it really wasn't until towards the end, or really after, that we got this band going.
I see.
And now it's years later. It's like 5 years later. And
Right,
we're still
wow.
around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you said the total bandmates is 5. There's 5 bandmates.
Yeah, sometimes 6. We're doing the 2 guitar thing,
Right, right.
which I'm super into, because on the records we always overdubbed guitar as the thing we overdub, as
Absolutely.
everybody does.
Yeah, as everybody does,
you know?
yeah.
But it's like, well, we got to
There's
get
a lot
those
of
parts.
freedom.
Those parts are so nice, and we're
Yeah.
compromising something if we don't have 2. And it's been sounding so nice with
Right.
2 guitars.
There's a lot of freedom with it too, like with playing with 2 guitars.
Yeah.
You know, like every sort of like riff just kind of, you know, delivers like heavier. You can start to play like harmonic lines together. Do you guys don't have a keys player, do you?
No,
No.
never did.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So there's one of the, you know, 2 guitars can be handling like full chords, you know,
Exactly.
and balance things out, right? And so did all 5 bandmates meet at McGill?
Yeah, more or less. The original iteration, we had a different guitarist named Matt Schultz, who now lives in New Orleans. He's American as well.
Right.
He moved down there This must have been 2018 or end of 2017 or something.
Right.
So this was our second record that we made. He's on half of it. He's on, so it was like around that time.
Right.
But he was great, and Jean-Michel, who's playing guitar in the band now, who's currently in Toronto with us on tour. He's the main guitarist now, and he's great. And we went to McGill with him as well.
Right. So you guys released records. If I'm not mistaken, an album in 2017, another one in 2019, and then an EP in 2020.
Yeah.
So tell me about the recording process from then till now, and if anything has changed and how you sort of adapted, whether it be in terms of studio production or just the artistry as you guys have been making music together.
Oof. Yeah, well, it's changed. The first thing that comes to mind is to jump to the end is the mastering process. Working with a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer who are on the same page. If you just compare, compositionally too, there are things changing. Ethan, as the composer, he has his own evolution that can be heard across those records.
Right.
But in terms of the studio, I think the difference between that EP in 2020 and the album before was we had a mixing and mastering engineer who were familiar with each other's work.
Right.
And so when I first heard that EP, I felt really immersed in the music. And I guess that's what the mastering engineer has to do, right? Like making it full and sound muscular.
Yes, that's
and
a great
our band
word
has
for
a
it.
certain weight to it.
Yeah.
And so we've got jazz elements, so you're not going to mix it exactly like you would a rock record.
For sure.
But it needs weight.
Yeah, your
Needs
music
weight.
is like, from the perspective of a mixing or mastering engineer, it is a very like tailored and bespoke kind of sound. And we were alluding to this earlier before we started rolling, that like a lot of bands will pitch, regardless of what their actual genre is, they will pitch that they're sort of like, you know, bending genres and there's some sort of fusion without it sounding like the fusion genre. And then you listen to it and it's pretty like single lane. This is one sound, you know. But having been somewhat familiar with your music over the course of this week leading up to, you know, today's recording, it's like it is legitimately different. There's a lot of, even within a tune, like there's some tunes that you have, Revelations 1 and 2, which is the beginning and the bottom of the most recent release, right? Like it is jazz music, it is modern jazz, it's got a groove, but it's not like the thin and papery and light and almost like up in the air sort of mix. Like especially drums, and being a drummer first, like the kit actually has, like you said, it's muscular, it has weight to it. And so it's important that, you know, the last two people that you work with before the record comes out are very much on the same page about that, because it's very easy for things to either get lost or for the wrong things to be highlighted, or wrong in the sense of like what you guys are not looking for, you know. And so when you guys are recording, are you guys doing it live off the floor, or are you guys multi-tracking?
Depends on the track. I mean, I could think back to the most recent release and how we did it, but really we almost always have a bed off the floor that we then add to or cut something at the end to, or whatever it is.
We've never done drums alone, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
I really don't like, unless it's like a pop thing, and that method has its merits.
Yes.
But in this setting, the connection between the drums and bass particularly, we can isolate those two instruments, so there's just no reason in my mind to
100%
to build it one layer at a time. I don't think it.
Agreed.
You end up with the result you want.
That's just the best way, you know, to go about it. And for the listeners that aren't necessarily musicians, what we're talking about in that one, you know, point there is that musicians will record instruments separately. So, for example, the drummer will do either one song or 8 songs or 9 songs or however many at one time, and just get everything, just essentially the concrete of their house taken care of. And then instruments will be layered on top of that. But for Plastic Waste, it's a better feel and better like musical delivery if the bassist and drummer are playing at the same time and they are locking in together and achieving the live feel through your ears. And it's very important to capture that, especially for the genre of jazz. I mean, everyone knows it as recorded like live off the floor. And so part of its character and authenticity is hearing like not every snare or cymbal note or bass note like at the perfect velocity like every time. It needs that human element.
The human element.
And
Yeah,
and sometimes the like, you know, dare I say the OCD, it's like it's got to be at the same level every time. It's like, well, it's not as real anymore. It's not entirely, you know, fabricated or digital, but if I were to go see the band live, it's not going to be the exact same volume every time. And you want to be able to have more control of how you're pulling in the listener's ear and attention. And so to do that, you got to do it live off the floor. And so have you guys both been on all the releases together throughout 2017 and now?
Yes.
How do you guys find your relationship as a rhythm section, you know, it being like 6 years now?
Well, we go way back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, needless to say, it's grown tighter, but also looser in other ways.
Right.
You know, the groove has grown tighter, but especially live, and then how that translates to the records, of course. We have more trust, I would say, that we're able to go more places, you know.
Right.
We're able to take risks and follow each other, or be like, I got you, do this thing,
Yeah,
you know, in
exactly.
a musical kind of way.
Have each other's back.
Going back to what you were saying about velocity production in jazz, the biggest thing that's changed across our records is how they were produced.
Right.
So at the beginning, it was totally just off the floor, hardly any overdubs. Okay, this is it, mix it, it's master it, it's done.
Right.
Revelations EP, the most recent release, was like heavily produced. You might not necessarily notice, it's not like, you know, an electronic record.
Right.
But I find that to be a quite obvious direction that jazz is going.
For
where
sure.
we involve production. I mean, production is such a huge part of music nowadays.
Absolutely.
You know, that to make jazz that can be post-produced, or to use samples or something in your tracks or something like that, it just seems to be such a clear next step, you know,
Yeah.
for the music.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's just like, just with age in general, you know, like I'm 23. I'm not sure how old you guys are. We haven't really, you know, discussed age before, but you guys aren't 80. So samples.
You don't know that.
Well, yeah, you guys are 80. You guys look fantastic
Well,
for 80.
thank you, yeah.
And once we're done recording, I'm going to need to know your skincare and diet routine. Because
It's all about those cherries, okay?
Yeah.
You eat the cherries every day and you're good.
But I mean, like, even if you're somebody that was born, you know, in like 75 and you grew up in the 90s, you grew up with De La Soul and Wu-Tang and all these artists that were pushing, you know, the Aerosmith and Run DMCs. Like, it's just not, like, the music that people have grown up with is not just like one lane, or is not just like live off the floor music anymore. And I'm a fan of, regardless of someone's genre, people taking the time to sort of recognize where is the world today and how can I sort of pave my own way within that. Because there's a lot of like jazz music that I know of, but it's not my first genre. And I don't mean to make that sound like it's a discredit. It's just not what I, you know, naturally, you know, cling to. But listening to your music, and I'm tooting your horn for a second here, there wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, yeah, like I know what's happening or what's going to come next. Or they just played the head and now they're going to solo over it and then they're going to play the head again. And then that's the song. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of moments where I'm listening, I'm either driving or I'm walking in between, you know, places to work, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, whoa, like I'm in the present moment every time I've heard your music. And I'm glad it's actually the case, because we talked about doing this podcast episode having never heard your music before. So I'm like, I really hope I like it, man. 'Cause that would really suck if I didn't.
Have to pretend the whole time.
What am I going to talk about now? You know, like, so what's your favorite food to eat? You know what I mean? But I mean, for anyone that's not a jazz fan and that's listening, I would recommend listening to it, because it is like a, I don't want to say that you guys are just now in a genre that is called genre fluidity, or you guys have made your own box that's like a box of a whole bunch of stuff, like a liquid state. I would just call your music your sound, just how you guys make music. It's just one of those things. It's not like a single lane. But anybody that wants to, find something new, find a new itch to scratch, I would recommend listening to it. Being someone who normally likes a solid backbeat and an easy melody and that stuff. Like, I'm someone who just move me along. Like, I like dance music,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where people that listen to that kind of music that is very simple, anytime they hear something that's like slightly out of place, they're like, oh, like, what is this? I don't like this, which I can understand. But listening to your music, I'm like, this is actually like good. I actually enjoy it. It's fun to listen to. I just like pressed play on the artist page and just let it take me, and it felt like very rewarding to be able to listen to it and have moments where I'm like, whoa, like what just happened there? Like the music is almost like, I don't know what the best word would be, but like take a generic pop tune. You have like your intro, your chorus, verse, etc., bridge, etc. You can kind of know what's coming up, and there's a pro to that in having like that confidence on where a song is going to take you. But with your music, I was like, what's next? What's coming up? Which, I mean, I hope you guys take that as a compliment, because I'm like, this is actually entertaining and fun to listen to, and it makes my brain, interactive with the music. So I hope whenever you guys come back, I can watch you guys play, because I feel so bad. Especially, too, I was listening to the music on the drive over here to Melody First, and thank you, Gabe, for being a legend and, helping us out today. And I was like, damn, it sucks I had to work late. I missed that show, because I would have really loved to see you guys do it in real life.
Well, you're in luck, because tonight we're playing at Drum. 3 a.m. set.
3 a.m.
3 a.m. at Drum. Have you been to Drum?
Never.
Drum Taberna
Oh,
on
that's
Queen
the
Street?
spot.
Really?
Yeah,
At 3
yeah,
a.m.?
they got cool music in general. But Fridays and Saturdays, they're open till 4. And they have a late set that's like always something wacky, something crazy.
Damn.
So we reached out to them maybe a year ago to try to book something.
Yeah.
And we did this set last September. And they're like, we need something super crazy. And the guy sent me the most hilarious booking email I've ever received.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys are down to like do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, sorry, I'm so drunk right now writing this email. Like, we've just been... And then I just respond like, yeah, like... Last year also, I think it was 2:30 a.m. we started.
Whoa.
And we did it, and it was a really, really unique energy, really cool, full room, full of drunk people, Yeah, it was fun. So we're doing that tonight. Already underslept.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how we feel.
I was gonna say, you guys played last night. You drove from Montreal. So let me get this. So you guys performed Wednesday night in Montreal. Was it like a late show?
No, it was evening.
5
It was
p.m.
like
5 to
evening.
6,
Okay, yeah. And did you just like pack up and just like book it to Toronto, or did you drive yesterday?
Drove the next morning.
Wow. So you just like parked and played, and then now you're here.
We left early enough. We had a bit of time.
Yeah.
Had some dinner. Chilled a little bit. John took a nap. I was
Nice.
jealous. Jealous of that.
I'm an excellent napper.
Are you someone that can nap like on moving vehicles and planes and cars, or does it got to be stationary?
He napped while he was driving us.
No,
Oh, dude.
no.
He's one of those guys, right?
No,
Crazy.
I take that responsibility seriously.
For sure.
I hate the bus with a singular passion, but I like train. I like the train. I could sleep on the train, and
Nice.
but no, I don't have that superpower.
Okay,
not
I
really.
guess that makes me a superhero.
Oh, yeah?
I
You
can
got that?
pretty much
You're
sleep
an napper.
anywhere.
Oh,
man.
good for you.
And I'm a heavy sleeper too. And I was having this conversation with a coworker of mine 2 days ago about the app. You guys ever heard of Better Sleep? You ever heard
I
of
get
that app?
ads for it.
Yeah, this is not by no means this is a paid promotion, but if someone from Better Sleep wants to just fund my subscription to that app, I'm totally down. I'll talk about that app on every podcast. I'm someone who's very much like, well, I mean, you guys are working musicians. You get the whole, oh my God, there's like 8 things I got to do tomorrow. And it's 2 a.m. and I literally just got home and I got to be up at 8. And I'm like, oh, do I have all my gear packed for the next day? I mean, drummer to drummer, like just the amount of individual things that we got to like account for. It's like crazy. That's why I love the gigs where I get to play like guitar I'm like, oh, you have a patch cable for me? Thanks. You know what I mean? Super easy.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of times, you know, before bed where I'm just like running through the motions, like, what do I got to do the next day? And then you spend 40 minutes thinking and it's not fun. And I'm like, shit. So I got that app, and that app has actually been like such a nice aid to sleep that I can pretty much like sleep anywhere now. It's kind of great. You
Right
know?
on.
Even when I'm driving myself, I can just kind of pass out,
Yeah, that's
you know, turn
that's
the
okay.
Mazda into a Tesla, and then I get to...
Oh, I fantasize about that. The day that day is gonna come before we're done on this planet. Hopefully,
yeah.
when we can just and imagine the touring musicians, how much it's gonna benefit.
Oh my God.
Having a car like that where you could just have it be like, take me to Toronto.
Yeah.
Don't even, and I don't want to. I don't even, and then I would care a whole lot less about like how we get there and the traffic.
Yeah.
Because you could just chill
Sleep.
the whole time.
Right.
I look forward to that.
Just
Please,
bronze.
Elon Musk, deliver.
Yeah, please, bro.
Come on.
Never mind space, bro. We need this. Man. Like that. You know what? That makes me like. That makes my brain light up. Just the thought, just commuting and not having to worry about the commute itself and just sleeping. Maybe I get to finish reading a book one time in my life. That'd be so great. I wish I had the time for that luxury. So, what's next on the horizon for you guys?
What's next on the horizon?
Besides the 3 a.m. set, because
We're talking about the band. We're talking about ourselves.
Mhm.
The band. I mean, well, we finish this run tonight. I fly back to New York. They all go to Montreal. And we reunite in October to play some gigs. Hopefully
Nice.
here again, maybe elsewhere in Canada.
Sweet.
Yeah, but we're playing in this festival in Montreal called the Off Festival,
Cool.
which showcases mostly local, but some from out of town, like creative music. And it's worth mentioning that this band really started as part of that scene that's
Right.
based there, you know,
Absolutely.
which, as I mentioned, is super unique, and some of my favorite music has sprung out of that. So we're very lucky to be a part of that festival, which is a really good representation of it.
For sure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
so
and
that's
on the Anglo and the
mid-October.
Quebecois scene, like
Mhm.
well, all different types of bands. It's really worth checking out, and people don't really know as much about it. Of course, as compared to the international festival, it's way more low key. It's
Right.
a nice time to be in Montreal, and you see great original creative music.
And this is in October?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our
Can you-
date, October 14th or so.
Right.
yeah.
Can you pronounce the name of it once more?
Le Off
Le
Festival, as in the in French, le apostrophe off, as in
Off, yeah.
not on.
It used to happen
Festival.
during the International Jazz Festival.
Right.
Like because there was a feeling at one point, in my understanding, that they weren't booking enough local acts, and so the Off Festival sprung up to book local acts during that high tourist season.
Right.
And then they thought, well, you know, why compete with the festival during the festival?
Mhm.
We'll just move it to the fall. That could be wrong, but that's what I've heard.
Right.
I haven't heard that from the founder.
Yeah, from that
Just
exactly.
through the
But
scene.
but the truth is now the Montreal Jazz Festival seems to be booking a lot more local acts.
Yeah, that's
Hence
it.
us playing there.
Mhm.
A lot of our peers. It's been a really really nice mix. It was amazing being there and seeing our idols from out of town as well as people who we knew
Yeah.
from the scene there. On equal ground too. People are like amazed at this stuff.
That's I
is
think
just
that
there.
point,
Yeah.
the fact that you guys are on equal ground is a really important thing, because it's great to go see your favorite artist, you know, regardless of their popularity internationally or in whatever city, but it's super important that anything that we do is renewable and is sustaining, and you have, you know, Thundercat playing on the same stage as you guys, and or whatever the actual, you know, stage is, right? I'm almost speaking arbitrarily, but for the larger artists, the, you know, the ones that are, let's say, at the top, to be able to sort of provide for everyone that's up and coming and just keep the whole mill moving along. And this is the thing, like, on one hand, I don't think it should be the case where bands like who just started a year ago in their basement and haven't really put any of their work in should just be doing that. I think there should be some sort of standard across the board. But at the same time, it's like, if you guys have bands that have been doing it for time, they're either music students or they've shown some sort of like level of, you know, I give a crap about this, you know, and the opportunity is there. It should be taken, you know, and allow people to sort of like move forward. And I want to tie this into at least from what I understand, like the message that the band, you know, is delivering to an audience about like sustainability and having our world be renewable. And like I said before we started rolling, I don't want to paraphrase, you know, how you guys, you know, pitch the message, but I'd love to hear it from you guys, and you know, the whole thing about being sustainable and you know, self-sustaining, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I can try to articulate that as best I can, but by just early on, the inspiration for a lot of the music was this existential thing that we're dealing with, climate change. It among other things, you know, it feels like an apocalyptic time almost, where we see very apocalyptic things happening before our eyes. And this is us here in the West seeing them, where they've been happening for a long time other places in the world, but it's becoming very obvious, like, oh, we live in this time when this cannot be not on our minds. So as artists, we have to grapple with that. And I've heard tons of musician friends say, like, what am I doing playing music? Like, there's so much that needs to be done in the world. Like, what am I doing? You know? So I was thinking about that question a lot, and how to position my work around that. So a lot of the music is really an attempt to grapple with that question of what do we do when what we do seems meaningless. You know, something that, you know, throughout history, artists have been making music even when their families were getting killed or by the government or whatever.
For sure.
You know, so it's not a new question, and it's not a new way to make music. But for me, writing the music is more about global existential threat, you know. And that tied in, of course, to climate change and sustainability, hence the name of the band, the Plastic Waste Band. Conservation. So our last album, actually, I would pretty confidently say we're never going to release our music on CD again. It's archaic even if you don't care about the earth.
For sure.
So our last record, Revelations EP, we made these download cubes. So you know how you can buy music on Bandcamp and get a download code. You know, it can sell a download code to download this music digitally. So we made these like cardboard cubes, almost like 3 inches cubed, with the art on every side that you can fold up, and it's this nice object, and it has the download code right on it.
Nice.
But it's recyclable.
Of course but don't recycle it. That's the record. That's cool. You know, put it up in your house. But yeah, of course it's recyclable.
I'm just being real. I'm just being a hardcore realist.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's a really great thing though, because sometimes, I mean, like for example, I have a little brother who's, I want to say like 17 right now. I feel like I'm like an old dad not remembering his age, but yeah, 5.5 years, so 17. And him and I were talking about like the music he's into. He's very much into like new rap and trap and dare I say mumble rap and that kind of stuff. I don't think it's, you know, inherently bad, but I asked him, like, how do you feel about the music you listen to? And he's like it's just there, you know. And I'm asking him this, being him who's like in the younger generation, who's not a musician, who doesn't have that connection to it. And then I got a gift as a friend. They just gave me their like suitcase little vinyl player, and they're like, you're a musician, you can probably make use of this. I'm like, I guess I gotta find a new needle for it, but I can do something with it. And my brother's like, oh, that's for vinyls. And I'm like, yeah, you can, you know, physically play the music. He goes, that makes me want to go back and like listen to dad's like old CDs. And I'm like, there's definitely something to having a piece of art that's physical that you can touch, because though your cell phone is something physical, you can't touch Spotify. You can't pick up the little sphere and play with it and shake it and it'll play a song or something. And so I think the cube idea is fantastic because it allows people to have like a physical connection to your art, and therefore a physical connection to your music. And you could even extend it further as a physical connection to one of their own personal experiences or memories, listening to your music or watching a show, and having something like that, you know, really provides that sort of like pathway for people to just connect a little bit deeper to what you guys are doing. And I don't think it really counts as like merch. It's not, I had to pay for this and I got to wear it and represent it, and I'm almost like a walking billboard for my friend's band. Like, it's a thing that they get to keep on their windowsill and be like, oh yeah, Plastic Waste Band. Like, that's Ethan and John.
Well,
I love those guys.
Public advertisement helps too.
For sure.
We got shirts, that's not the only thing
Absolutely.
we're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, especially with jazz adjacent music, I'm going to call this jazz adjacent music.
There you go. There's the genre.
Well, we call it psychedelic jazz, actually,
Yes,
if
yeah,
we're
yeah.
asked to say the genre,
Right.
which you're asked to do almost all the time
Yes.
if you're playing. We say psychedelic jazz. But yeah, in jazz adjacent music, they really got to pick up with the merch thing, I think, because you can get so creative with that, right?
Absolutely.
And you can, I feel that what has set us apart as a band, music aside, is that we've always tried to find new ways to present ourselves, places we've performed at venues that don't traditionally host the kind of music
Right.
that we do, to try to push that boundary, playing with bands that are not in the same scene as us to try to push that boundary too, and of course changing up how we advertise ourselves with merch,
Right.
the cubes as one example.
Well, it's a nice opportunity to collaborate with a visual artist.
There you go.
Because that's part of the fun of putting up record together is to think about beyond the band, beyond the post-production, who you can work with. And some of the artists that you've worked with have turned out images that are that help give an idea of the feeling of the band.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing. And it's nice to maybe consider even going forward, how do you do that in a sustainable way, and having a physical object that isn't that can represent the music visually.
Right.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's kind of an exciting. That's fun. We wouldn't want to skip out on that fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys have a lot of opportunity that exists, or that you can forge on your own to partner with, industries outside of music that are essentially, giving the same message and have the exact same, goals and views. And on the point of like, oh, I'm making music, but the world is burning. Like, I find a lot of times like art will connect with people faster than, a speech or like some sort of like long scroll that they
billboard,
read, or a billboard or whatever, and there's a lot of value in it. And I mean, you can make the argument of like right place and right time and all that, but I really think it's just like, like diligency and like staying the course kind of thing, as opposed to just like lucky break kind of stuff in terms of how you connect with people. But I'm excited for you guys. I'm really pumped. I think it's really sick. And I appreciate the confidence and honesty that you guys, bring to the art and your approach to it, and then just the message as well, because I feel like sometimes people in general, not just musicians, like have something to say and they believe in it truthfully, but they don't necessarily believe in themselves that much. And then so they kind of like, they like hide back and they're like, yeah, I'm a fan of this, but I'm not going to say it. Or I really believe this should be this way, but I'm not going to say anything. I appreciate when people, are forthright and they like are, strong chested, and they say it and they're like, I resonate with the shit. You know what I mean?
That's what it is to be a musician.
Yeah.
Though.
Very much.
Note to note.
Yes.
Is
Mean it.
how do I feel and how can I express it,
Right.
know? And you can express it with a single note, or you can express it with an entire creative project and an entire message. But at the end of the day, the most important question is, why am I doing it? Right?
Yeah.
Why am I doing it? And if that reason is clear to people, that's what's going to resonate.
Right.
And even in instrumental music, like where you don't have the luxury of lyrics to be so explicit about what you mean, it still comes across. Like, just to go back to this, the Shed is the event that goes on at Montreal Jazz Fest every year, and it's a collection of mostly black artists that were playing. This is the group that Casey Benjamin was invited as a guest to play at. And we were both there, and the conviction behind his playing. I mean, I was talking with a a friend afterwards, and it wasn't long. Like, we were talking about how much we enjoyed it, how hard it is to explain the feeling, the life affirmation that witnessing a musician like that gives you.
Mm-hmm.
But very quickly, the conversation shifted to I don't want to say political things, but ideas about like what it says about how we want to see the world.
Absolutely.
And what it says about the inspiration that it gives us to want to see the world changed to be simply, not to use a platitude, but to be better or more just.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's from a saxophone solo, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the power that music has to change our hearts and our minds about things, it's almost subconscious. But you hear a saxophone solo, or you hear a song with words or without, and you hear music that's totally out there.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did that make me feel? And then you realized it made you feel like you could feel any way, like you could change your mind about anything in the world,
Yeah.
And then you start to think, well, what are other things that I believe in that I could think differently about?
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly powerful thing. You know, it's almost what the music does to us.
And I like that it promotes like critical thought. Like it actually promotes like some sort of like self-assessment, whatever that degree is, and to just like actually like, do I actually like this or not? And to the point of like how music not just shapes us but affects us. Like, I mean, to sound like a stoner dad for a second, like you can see it in babies. Like you can just have like a 1-year-old baby and just play like boom ka boom ka boom ka boom ka.
And they start going like,
and they're just like doing this, and they're like
in time, man.
in time. And that's such a good point, because they're not sitting there thinking, what are they thinking of me right now? Why did I wear these jeans today? Like, none of that. They haven't even had that self-assessment moment, like, I am a being. They're just like fully experiencing it raw and authentically. And I think there's a point where the beginning of that sort of degrades in us, but I think it's almost everyone's like due diligence and responsibility to like find that again. Like, get in line so that you're not like a little shithead kid and you don't make shit difficult. But then there comes a point where you get out of it and it's like, okay, you got to go find that again. But in your own way, and you get to like earn that path. And I like it when music does that with people. Like, I remember I listened to the artist Labyrinth for the first time, and I heard the song Jealous. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that song. He's done the music for the Euphoria TV show. Okay. The song Jealous is like one of the saddest songs I've ever heard. But it's like a bittersweet sad. It's like, oh man, I wish I was there. I wish that was me. As opposed to, why did this happen to me or happen to them or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was at the beach. My mother's Dominican. And so we were visiting family in the Dominican Republic. And I'm at the beach. And I'm like, there's nothing in life I could ever complain about in that moment. Life is a TV commercial right now.
Right.
And I had just downloaded like a new release like playlist, and I didn't know that I saved another song from his that was like way more upbeat and funky and way more happy. And I'm like listening to the tunes, I'm like, yo, this is so great. And then that song starts playing and it cues with the piano, and it's like the whole world just like tuned out. It was like tunnel vision through my ears, and it was like the first time, I don't remember how old I was, but it was when it came out. It was like the first time I had heard a song consciously knowing about music, and I was like, whoa. And it's almost that rebirth of that full immersion that a song can give you had like happened in that moment. I was like, that's it.
That's struck.
That's the meaning of all of it. You know what I mean? And I mean, babies are fortunate enough to not have to think about it. It just happens to them, but the honorable and noble pursuit for that from a musician's perspective is very clear. But I think, the world in general, like music is like, let's say what, the 5th or 6th most materialistic thing that people seek. It's like a house, a car, you know what I mean? Like water and food or whatever. And then after that, it's some form of entertainment, and music's probably the easiest one to get, comparatively speaking to theater or Netflix or cable or whatever, right? I would imagine music's the most accessible. Even just like music playing, in a TTC. And I find that, I think rather that an audience or people in general that are not musicians would find a lot of gain and reward searching for music that actually piques the brain and actually scratches a niche that they've never had before, and I think your music can do that for people a lot, and I'm not saying only you, there's a whole bunch of artists as well, but for the people listening to Flat 5, I mean, like, take 10 minutes out of your day that you would have spent, scrolling through whatever trending audio and like listen to Plastic Waistband instead, because I think that'll do you better for the rest of your week than some meme about like a peach and a dog or some ridiculous stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen that trending audio, that saxophone solo. It's like and it's like every possible image you can think of with that audio. Okay. like a fluffy shark, a baguette, like a Getty images of like a policeman. It makes no sense. And they're like, "Oh, it's so funny." I'm like, "It is," but then it just literally screws up your whole like For You page. And you're like, "Get me out of this, man. Like I can't stand this anymore, Give me something else. Give me something with sustenance, something that's real, So I'm going to do a quick time check cuz I know we do got to skedaddle at some point here. Well, we've got like 10-ish minutes. I mean, what time do you guys got a splits?
Pretty soon. I'm feeling we covered a lot.
Absolutely. I'll leave you with one question.
For sure.
Because you guys are performing musicians who just got off stage like less than 24 hours ago. If there was one dream lineup that you guys could play in Montreal with all of your favorite artists, let's say alive, because I feel like if we said dead, this would be too long of a conversation. But if there was a dream lineup that you guys had to play with, to share the stage with, to
play with our band and then play after.
Yeah, if you guys were curating your own festival with the live musicians and you were able to book it, but Plastic Waistband with, let's say, 5 other artists, who would they be?
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so hard. Mackay McCraven. That's what I would say.
Yeah. You're big on him.
I'm really big on him. He played the festival a year ago and did 3 shows, and I saw him.
Gabe, could you imagine if I said alive or dead? Who would have been here?
I'd get Hendrix, man. He's still killing it. Still killing it.
That would be crazy.
Oh, I don't know. So hard to say. I was talking about this band, the Dirty Projectors, in the car on the way over here.
Yeah, that'd be a cool choice.
They're really in this like very in between world in music.
Right.
More on the indie rock side, if you had to choose one. But in terms of curation, I'd choose them among Mackay and McCraven. Maybe choose like some crazy jazz, because now we're getting pretty down the middle. Now we want something really out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What could that be?
The one that comes to mind for me is Kamasi Washington. I just love his music.
Yeah.
The epic. When I saw it on YouTube, I was like, this is amazing.
It is epic, I will say. That record with the choir and all that, it's like talking about doing as much as you possibly can.
Literally. And Thundercat was on one of the bassists on that as well.
Yeah, he's on that for sure. I don't know. I'd choose like Peter Evans or something. You know him? He's this
don't know.
Super out there trumpet player. Out there meaning his music just goes everywhere. It's insanely creative, the compositions, more on the free jazz side of things, but he's just that as a lineup. Plastic Waistband, Mackay McCraven, Dirty Projectors, Peter Evans.
Yeah. You
get Kamasi Washington. I probably wouldn't book him for this festival. Maybe his rate's too high.
Yes. Well, I mean, with all those musicians, man. You need a down payment on that band.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you take out a mortgage for this festival. You know what I mean?
Damn. Well, I got to say, John and Ethan, it has been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys, coming down here. I'm glad we can make this, work.
Me too.
I'm also glad that we met, especially in, of all places, like New York. Like, for my story, that's kind of like, unheard of. So, pretty cool happenstance. And, it's been a pleasure, hanging out with you as well, John. And for everyone listening to the Flat 5, listen to the Plastic Waistband. I'm sure you guys are on all platforms. Everywhere. I was listening to you guys on Spotify, but everywhere. Support them on Bandcamp. Unfortunately, this won't come out until like Monday, the earliest. So I'd like to promote the 3 a.m. set, but it will be history by then. But whenever they're back in Toronto, please, check them out. Come down to a show. I'll probably see you there. And if you guys can plug your social media, like the ats, that would be great.
At Plastic Waistband.
There you go.
Pure and simple. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's all I can think of.
Threads?
Threads? Is that a new app?
It is.
Oh.
No, I don't think.
No Threads.
No Threads.
No Threads.
Maybe
in a couple
Snapchat?
days.
No.
Yeah, okay, that's all. That's too good. Well, thank you guys again. I appreciate your time. To everyone on the Flat Five podcast, for the audience, thank you so much. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode. You guys take care.